against my preferences. The wife opened the marriage. In spite of her beckoning, I made it fair and got a divorce. I never thought I would be writing this while sitting here. Ali, the 36th female, and I, the 35th man, are married and childless. I believed that we had a solid connection after 6 years of marriage. I was mistaken. For God knows how long, my marriage has been sinking into a dark dungeon, and now I'm left wondering if any of those 6 years were even genuine. I went to see my grandfather at his farmhouse last month. His health was rapidly declining, so the family decided to arrange a party for his 89th birthday. Ali came to celebrate with me as well, but she had to go back to work the following morning. I made the decision to stay at his property for a week. I worked from home. Ali and I spoke on video call every night for the 5 or 6 days I was there. I suppose we just spoke about random topics over video chat on the 3rd and 4th nights. "Have you ever thought about opening our marriage?" she inquired nonchalantly, dropping a bombshell that shattered my image of our marriage. I went cold. My stomach rumbled. My mind was still processing what she had just said. I was on the phone doing stuff. In the hopes that I had misheard, I instantly looked at the screen. "What did she say?" I asked. "Don't overreact," she murmured, rolling her eyes. "Why don't we open up our marriage?" I said. "You know, I think it's enjoyable to watch other individuals, just to add some flavor." Her manner was so informal that it seemed like she was recommending a new restaurant to try or a new holiday destination. I remained mute and motionless for a minute as I tried to take in what she had just said. A number of ideas were racing through my head. We weren't like this. We weren't the type of couple who needed to have extra sexual relations to keep things interesting. Why she was even considering this was beyond me. Not to mention bringing it up in a casual chat. "No, I haven't thought about it, and I don't want to," I responded bluntly. She tried to hide it with a shrug. "I just figured it may be something unusual and enjoyable. Other couples have reportedly done it and reported feeling better as a result." I overheard a tirade about how certain celebs engage in this, and how certain couples are really content with open marriages. My chest was thumping with my heart. What I was hearing was unbelievable. "What's up, Ali?" I asked her once she finished. "How did you come up with the idea that we ought to get married?" She explained that she became enthralled with the wonderful lifestyles of these polygamous or polyamorous couples after reading about them. I listened to her carefully, attempting to identify the warning sign, and when she finished I firmly stated, "No, absolutely not, I don't want to share you with anybody else. I didn't sign up for that type of marriage." I could see the disappointment in her eyes, even though she nodded. She abruptly shifted the topic, but I had a feeling that this wasn't the end of it. I had planned to stay at the farm for a couple more days, but this talk made it impossible for me to do so. I felt nervous. The very following day I returned home. At the time, Ali was at work. I've been on Reddit long enough to know that when your partner proposes an open marriage, it's more probable that they have cheated already, or are about to do so. I hurriedly looked through her closet and makeup bag, but I couldn't discover any proof that she had cheated. She wasn't shocked to see me when she returned in the evening. She claimed to have known that following our conversation the previous evening, I would rush home. She flipped on me, accused me of infidelity, and became passive-aggressive. I made it clear that while I wasn't suspicious of her, I was worried about her unexpected interest in poly. She approached my matter with a really warped logic. "See, that's why people choose poly," she added. "The ongoing uncertainty about whether or not your lover is cheating on you is something you don't have to cope with. You are aware of your partner's affection and commitment to you. Isn't that all that matters?" "It's not all," I wrote. "Just because my spouse doesn't provide me security doesn't mean I can share them. It is our duty to ensure each other's safety." After a furious argument, I asked her directly whether she was cheating on me. She gave her phone to check right away. I am not as naive as she believes me to be. She has undoubtedly cleared everything in case anything was left behind if she knew I would be home and gave her phone to check. It was pointless to verify it. I responded, "I don't want to see it, and I trust her." After that, she broke down in tears and said she had never cheated on me. It was nothing more than a fleeting notion that she expressed to me. It got to the point where I felt bad for having suspicions about her. She promised to never be unfaithful to me. I believed we were sorted after we made out. For the following few days, everything went well. Eventually, I just began to become quieter and more aloof than normal. She appeared distracted, frequently dozing off over dinner, aimlessly browsing through her phone, or gazing off into space while we were meant to be catching up. She had never stayed late at work before, but she began to do so more frequently. I asked her why she was suddenly so busy and challenged her about it. She dismissed me, claiming that I was being silly for even questioning it, and that her workload had doubled. She would hand me her phone to check any time I pushed her about it, but I never tolerated it. Despite my want to trust her, I couldn't get rid of the uneasy sensation. She had something to conceal. I couldn't stop thinking about it after that chat. Why would she make such a suggestion? Everything was made worse by the time of her proposal for an open marriage. I received an opportunity to work on site in Germany for 3 weeks. I was worried about leaving Ali with this thinking, even though it was a great opportunity for me. I began to doubt every conversation, every laugh, every grin. Though I told myself I was being paranoid, I ignored the thought that kept bothering me. I had never before had any cause to doubt Ali. She was constantly giving her phone now as well. Therefore, it could have been only a fleeting idea. After giving it some thought, I agreed to the on-site offer. I spent 3 weeks away. Even though we spoke frequently, I kept getting the impression that she was fading away. I made an effort to tell myself that was only my imagination. But after a few days, Ali's messages began to shift. She reduced the frequency of her texts and made them brief and aloof. She would reply with brief, one-word responses when I sent her lengthy updates about my day and how much I missed her. She no longer seemed to give a damn. She gave me the same response when I asked her once whether everything was all right. Please don't worry, I'm just busy. I wasn't persuaded. I persisted in my questioning, and she brought up open marriage once again, stating, "See, that's why open marriages work these days. There are no limits. You always have fun and feel safe with your spouse. 3 weeks will pass while you're away. I'm in need. Additionally, you're concerned that I could be unfaithful. Therefore, it would be best if we ended the marriage." It wasn't just a suggestion this time. She said it with conviction. Whether I like it or not, she obviously wants it. I couldn't speak. "We'll talk about it when I get back," I said. I made the decision to return home early. I had to observe what was happening for myself. I didn't inform Ali that I would be returning. I wanted her to think I was still hundreds of miles away, so I wanted to surprise her and find out what she was doing. Everything appeared normal when I arrived home. Actually, it's too normal. As though she had been getting ready for my return, the home looked immaculate. She smiled at me in astonishment, yet there was something strange about her response, as if she were performing. I kept a close eye on her. Not to brag, but I looked through her phone as well and couldn't find anything. I was foolish enough to think that I could be too suspicious. She didn't bring up the subject again, which surprised me. She returned from work the following day yesterday and rushed into the room, saying, "Look, we have to do this." I couldn't understand. "What are you going to do?" "I've been talking to some people," she continued, without looking at him. "I know a couple that have been doing this for a long time. For them, it works. And I believe we could make it work." I could feel the heat rising in my body. "Individuals? Who are they?" After a moment of hesitation, she said that she had met this couple on an internet forum. They had all been pushing her to explore open marriage because they were all into it. "You're already speaking with them without consulting me," I yelled at her. "Are you aware of the mess this is? I have been trying to make you understand. But you're stuck into your fossil concept of monogamy," she remarked, shocking me. "I have finished waiting on you. Whether you like it or not, I'm going ahead and getting married." After a few period of processing her words, I grabbed her shoulder and questioned. "Or directly, you already cheated on me. Didn't you look at me and respond?" She eventually revealed the truth as her cheeks reddened. She acknowledged having an affair behind my back. She calmed down, stumbled, and avoided looking at him. "I have not betrayed you. Not precisely, I mean. I hoped you may change your mind and join me, but it was just once. Just once." Did she expect me to accompany her? I felt like my world was spinning. The floor seemed to have collapsed beneath me. At last, the rage that had been growing within of me burst forth. Even though I don't get angry often, right now I was on the verge of strangling her. "You thought I'd change my mind?" I replied, somehow controlling myself. "You betrayed me. Whether it happened once or 1,000 times doesn't matter to me. The narrative is over since you have betrayed my confidence." I'm very certain that she stated it more than once. Before I did something I would later regret, I just bounded out of the home. My cousin hosted me for the night. I went home this morning to get my necessities. I'll spend a few days at a motel before deciding what to do next. I'm on the verge of ending my marriage, but I don't want to act hastily. I could be pushed over the edge if I see that witch's face. I must thus avoid her. She thus intended to add some spice to your marriage by bringing in a third party. How sentimental. To be honest, starting a marriage is nearly always a surefire way to end it horribly. Simply put, it gives the cheater the impression that they can get away with it. But, you have the proper concept. Avoid her. First update. For anyone who would like to read more, there has been some progress in my case. As previously stated, I spent several days at a motel in an attempt to decompress and choose my future course of action. I felt confused, angry, and devastated. Even though I still had feelings for her, I was unable to get past the betrayal. I didn't get any calls during this period, and Ali just sent me one text. "I understand that you're upset right now, and that makes sense, but if you give it some thought, you'll see that I made an effort to win your support," the text said. "I wanted to share this experience with you. It's not dishonest. I adore you, and this will just strengthen our bond. I also know that you will ultimately come along since you love me so much. I assure you it would be fun. I immediately met a divorce lawyer. Caused him the extra to get into the cube, but who cares, my life was falling apart. I even paid him extra to have my case expedited. After a week, I returned home and walked in to find her on the phone, openly flirting with some guy. She didn't even look guilty when I caught her. Instead, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong. She hung up the call and came to hug me. I just walked past her and sat on the couch. She hugged me from the side and said, "I knew you'd come along. It would be so much fun. You'll see. I'll help you find someone." I freed myself from her arms, looked dead in her eyes and said, "I filed for divorce." She froze and then she laughed out loud and said, "No, you didn't. You can't. You love me." An idea stuck in my head. Let's blindside her. I just smiled and said, "Yes, I loved you," and went to my room and dozed off. When he sought to divorce his wife for her adultery, he destroyed the house. According to a Reddit article I heard about a man. That was the last thing I wanted to experience. I waited for the paper to arrive since I couldn't afford to lose the valuables I possessed. I made an effort to avoid talking to Allie in the interim. Her visage made my blood boil. So much so that I avoided making eye contact. In addition, I had rented an apartment and was gradually moving my belongings there while Allie was away. At the time, I worked primarily from home. Furthermore, my witch didn't see anything since she was too preoccupied with getting banged in her dream world. She assumed I was simply pouting over this and would change my mind. I got the documents a week later. In order to gather my belongings and depart, I waited for Allie to leave for work. Everything was sent after I made a Packer service reservation. Everything that belonged to me. The sofa, the closet, the furnishings. I cleared the room and threw all of her clothing and accessories on the ground. Yes, there is one more thing. After I got home, I taped every chat I had. No, she didn't know about it. I required as much proof as I could get. Divorce is an unpleasant struggle. She was horrified to discover half of the items gone when she got home that night. Furthermore, the expression on her face when I gave her the papers was priceless. She was appalled, as if she hadn't anticipated that I would follow through. She didn't think it was true at first. "It's all manufactured, right?" she insisted. "I take it that you're doing this action only to discourage me from proposing to you?" "It's for real. You piece of crap," I replied, laughing and shoving the paper in her face. She went crazy when she eventually grasped the situation. She broke down in tears as she held my face in her hands and declared her love for me and her inability to endure to be parted from me. She said she tried her hardest to make our marriage more interesting. She pleaded with me to put the last several months behind me. She promised that if I wanted her to be monogamous again, she would cease talking to other guys. In a frantic attempt to persuade me to stay, she clung to me. She sobbed and spoke the same things again and over. "I'll do anything. No one else will see me. Just don't leave me, I promise." I chuckled. "The sound is empty and harsh. You know I'm serious, which is why you're saying this now, but it's too late. You must lie in the bed that you made." She slumped at the doorway, still weeping, while I collected my final belongings and left. But I drove away without turning around. I quickly banned her from all locations when she attempted to contact. I told her best friend that I didn't want to talk to anyone when she tried to reach me on Instagram. 3 days have passed since then. I've been living alone and attempting to occupy my time. The numbness and shock have subsided. All I feel now is loneliness, misery, and rage. To avoid negative thoughts, I've started working from the office, going for short walks, and going to the gym twice a day. I can't quit thinking about what she said. I'm exhausted by it. Isn't it all staged? I apologize for bursting your bubble, ally. This one is authentic. Second update. This is Anne. Update. She got in touch with my attorney and asked him to schedule a meeting with me before she would consent to the separation. If I wanted to make their procedure go more smoothly, my lawyer urged that we meet to make amends. Yes, he did warn me about several safety measures for the meeting. I sent her an email with the terms that we would meet in a public setting and that I would videotape the talk. I had to defend myself against any manipulation she could attempt. In order to have a more open conversation, she begged that we meet at her house. I refuted it. I chose a less packed cafe and a corner table instead. She was sitting there when I got there. She got up to give me a hug, but I refused. I moved past her and took a seat at the other end. She had a horrible appearance. Tear-streaked cheeks. Puffy eyes. Even though she appeared broken, I couldn't care less. I turned on the recorder and informed her that I would be recording the exchange. She apologized as soon as the tears began to fall down her cheeks. I already feel terrible about it. Don't embarrass me anymore, please. I've come to recognize my mistake. I was so foolish and self-centered. I believed it would strengthen our bond. I sneered. Nearer? You believed that lying to me and cheating on me would make us closer. I motioned for her to quit defending herself. I urged her to be honest with me. I was curious about every aspect. How long and how did she get involved in this? She stammered and sobbed many times before finally confessing everything. Along with her spouse, one of her co-workers practiced poly. While her husband was present, Ali witnessed her making out with a young intern at the company party. Ali was introduced to that reality after becoming perplexed and later confronting her co-worker. Her co-worker advised her to speak with me and get my permission before engaging in any of these activities, but Ali believed that since I loved her so much, I would comply. After that, Ali continued working with the same intern who had been interacting with her co-workers. That's where she halted it. My instinct told me that wasn't a one-time occurrence. How many times and how many guys? I questioned her. Every detail is what I desire. Stop the recording, she asked. No, she needs to talk to the recorder, I responded. She sobbed before detailing the specifics. After my farm excursion, she decided to give it a try. She decided to let it go because I didn't agree. But then I visited the location. She allowed herself to be tempted. She had dated a number of men. I demanded the specifics. Separately from some occasions, it was 3 men, a total of 7 sessions, including one with 2 of them. It was like being punched in the belly by a sucker. She had the audacity to speak after all these discoveries, but it had been meaningless. She pleaded for one more opportunity, vowing to make a change and return to the previous state of affairs. But I was unable to accomplish it. Once trust has been damaged, it cannot simply be restored. Everything we had created together had been destroyed by her. She was weeping so much that I thought she would pass out at one point. I was unable to control my worries. My eyes began to well up with tears for the first time. Let's start afresh, she replied, holding my hand. You won't regret it, I assure you. I'll make a decent wife. We can go through this difficult time together because of our love. Let's get back together, please. Every time I see you, I remember the betrayal, I murmured, glancing at her. Given that you cheated on me behind my back, how can I win you back? I stated unequivocally that reconciliation is not an option. She would be better off accepting it sooner rather than later. I got up to go. She begged for a final embrace while holding my hand. She held me and sobbed while I stood there like a rock. After releasing myself, I left. I didn't turn around to see what had happened to her, even though I could hear her sobbing. If anyone saw her crying, it didn't matter to me. Her father phoned me a few days later and asked to meet. They have shown me love and kindness over the years, even though I might have refused it. I believed I should meet with them once, so I went to see them. Both of them expressed regret for the incident. The only thing her father said was that he was worried about Ali's health. She has been weeping all night and has shut herself off. She has been eating poorly and occasionally missing work due to illness. Although she didn't force it, her mother made an effort to encourage a reunion. I said, "It's over between us with all due respect." Her father gave me a hug as he was leaving and said he could relate to my suffering. To be honest, it was a relief. Months have passed since then. I went to court with Ali and her parents throughout the divorce process. She's become skinny and unrecognizable. She is being taken to therapy by her parents. Although the divorce is still pending, I've moved on emotionally. I've begun to reconstruct my life without her. Even if it hasn't been simple, it's preferable to being in a deceitful marriage. Ali still makes an effort to get in touch with me, writing me lengthy emails detailing how she mistreats me. However, I don't answer. I am unable to. Someone I don't recognize has taken the place of the ally I fell in love with. At least I'm free now, even though some scars never completely heal. Let's designate such emails as spam, then.